Most companies spend years trying to figure out what their competitors are doing. Jeff Bezos spent those same years ignoring his competitors completely and built the most valuable company on earth. Here's the thinking most people never hear about. Today, we are going deep into the thinking, the frameworks, and the actual decision-making philosophy that built one of the most influential companies in history. This is not a story about Amazon's products. This is a story about how one person chose to think differently and why that changed everything. And if you're new here, this channel is called Rich Principle for a reason. We break down the mental models behind real success. Subscribe right now so you never miss a breakdown like this one. Jeff Bezos founded Amazon in 1994. He started it as an online bookstore, operating out of his garage, personally driving packages to the post office. In a 60 Minutes interview that would later become one of the most referenced documents in business history, Bezos recalled, "One of my visualizations of success was that we might one day be big enough to afford a forklift. That was the ambition, a forklift." Today, Amazon operates over 1,000 fulfillment centers worldwide, runs cloud infrastructure used by the CIA and Netflix simultaneously, and has fundamentally reshaped how the world shops, reads, and computes. The question isn't what Bezos built. The question is, how did he think? Here's what most people miss. In that same 60 Minutes interview, Bezos defined Amazon with one core idea: customer centricity. "We like to put the customer at the center of everything we do," he said. And this wasn't marketing language. It was a structural decision that shaped every choice Amazon made for decades. Bezos has said directly, and this is verified across multiple shareholder letters and interviews, we're not competitor obsessed. We're customer obsessed. We start with what the customer needs, and we work backwards. Now, think about what that actually means in practice. If you're competitor focused, you are by definition reactive. You're waiting for someone else to move first, then responding. But if you're customer focused, you're looking at what people need, not what currently exists. That gives you a completely different starting point for innovation. And that is where the edge comes from. Stop asking, what is everyone else doing? Start asking, what does my customer actually want that doesn't exist yet? Those are fundamentally different questions, and they lead to fundamentally different outcomes. If this way of thinking is already shifting something in your mind, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this content reach more people who need it. And this is where things get really interesting. In the 60 Minutes conversation, the interviewer challenged Bezos directly. Amazon was famous for showing little to no profit despite massive revenue. Quarter after quarter, investors saw thin margins and they kept investing anyway. Why? Bezos answered it clearly. He said the long-term approach is rare enough that it means you're not competing against very many companies because most companies want to see a return in 1, 2, or 3 years. But he was willing to wait 5, 6, 7 years. And that single difference in timeline, he believed, represented a massive competitive advantage. As Bezos has written, if everything you do needs to work on a 3-year time horizon, then you're competing against a lot of people. But if you're willing to invest on a 7-year time horizon, you're now competing against a fraction of those people because very few companies are willing to do that. Think about that. By simply extending the time horizon of his thinking, Bezos eliminated most of his competition, not by outspending them, not by hiring more people, just by being willing to wait longer. He explained it directly in the interview. When price studies told Amazon to raise prices because the math said they could, Bezos refused. Why? Because raising prices would erode customer trust. And that erosion would cost far more in the long run than the short-term profit gain. That is not conventional business thinking. That is a completely different operating system. How to apply this? When you face a decision between short-term gain and long-term trust, Ask yourself which decision you can defend 7 years from now. That question will often change your answer. Now, here's a principle that Bezos literally embedded into Amazon's corporate culture. He called it Day One. In his 1997 letter to shareholders, Bezos wrote, "This is day one for the internet, and if we execute well, for Amazon.com." He attached that same letter to every annual report for over 2 decades. What does day one mean? It means operating with the urgency, curiosity, and hunger of a company that is just getting started no matter how large you become. And what is day two? In his 2016 shareholder letter, Bezos answered, "Day two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death." That is not corporate poetry. That is a warning he kept issuing to himself and his entire organization. Most companies, once they reach a certain size, begin protecting what they have, they get defensive, they slow down. Bezos believed this was the beginning of the end, and he actively built systems to fight against it. No matter where you are in your career, your business, or your life, are you still operating with day one energy? Or have you started coasting on what's already working? Seriously, if you're getting real value from this breakdown, take 2 seconds and hit like. It costs you nothing and it helps this channel grow. In that 60 Minutes interview, Bezos said something that most people glanced over, but it reveals everything about how he sees opportunity. He said Amazon likes to go down dark alleys and see what's on the other side. Consider what this looked like in practice. Amazon started as a bookstore. Then it became an everything store. Then it built cloud infrastructure, AWS, that now powers a massive percentage of the global internet, including companies that directly compete with Amazon itself. When asked about the apparent contradiction of powering Netflix, a competitor, Bezos didn't flinch. The logic was simple. The customer of AWS needed the service. That was the starting point. Everything else was secondary. As Bezos has said, if you double the number of experiments you do per year, you're going to double your inventiveness. And the corollary to that is accepting failure as part of the process. He has stated clearly that Amazon is a great place to fail, because without the freedom to fail, experimentation stops. And when experimentation stops, innovation dies. How to apply this? Build a personal culture of small experiments. Not every idea needs to be a big bet, but if you're not testing anything, you're not learning anything. There is one line from the 60 Minutes interview that stands alone as a masterclass in mindset. The interviewer pushed back on Amazon's market power, specifically how its scale and thin margins could pressure smaller competitors. Bezos did not get defensive. He said simply, "The internet is disrupting every media industry. People can complain about that, but complaining is not a strategy." And then he said something even sharper. Amazon is not happening to bookselling. The future is happening to bookselling. Sit with that for a second. The natural human reaction to disruption is to blame the disruptor, to resist the change, to protect the old way. Bezos saw disruption not as an attack, but as an inevitability. And the only rational response to an inevitability is to position yourself on the right side of it. How to apply this? When something in your industry is changing and your first instinct is to resist pause, ask instead, how do I position myself with the change, not against it? One of the most striking moments in the 60 Minutes interview was when Bezos was asked about Amazon's longevity. He said companies have short lifespans. Amazon will be disrupted one day. He said he doesn't worry about it because he knows it is inevitable. Companies that were the most important of any era given a few decades are gone. His view, the job of leadership is to delay that date as long as possible, not to pretend it won't come. This is an extremely rare perspective. Most founders and executives speak about their company as though it will exist forever. Bezos built Amazon as though its clock was already running, which is probably why it has outlasted so many who thought they had more time. As Bezos has written, the whole point of moving things forward is that you run into problems, failures, things that don't work. You need to back up and try again. We've failed so many times, I think of this as a great place to fail. How to apply this? Build with urgency. Don't assume you have infinite time to get things right. The pressure of a mental deadline, even a self-imposed one, sharpens decisions in ways that comfort never does. Let me leave you with this. Bezos has said his 3 big ideas at Amazon, the ones he stuck with for nearly 2 decades, were simple. Put the customer first, invent, and be patient. Not complicated, not revolutionary in theory, but almost nobody actually executes all 3 simultaneously. Customer obsession requires patience. Invention requires tolerance for failure. And patience requires a long time horizon most people are unwilling to commit to. The real competitive advantage Bezos built wasn't a warehouse system or a cloud platform. It was a way of thinking that most people find too uncomfortable to sustain.